Good morning, everyone. Namaskar. Welcome to the Editorial Edge, StudyIQ's daily news analysis, your daily dose of news analysis that comes to you every morning at 8 a.m. Welcome, each one of you, whoever is joining me live and who will be watching me during the course of the day. Okay. So, again, if someone is just watching me live quickly, can you just let me know if everything is okay to you? My voice is coming fine, the screen is visible. All system checks done. Can you just quickly let me know? Good morning, Madhusudan. How are you? Madhusudan, आपने जो वो PDFs मांगे थे वो आज दिन तक अपलोड हो जाएंगे टेलीग्राम चैनल पे. ठीक है, आई कैन अश्योर यू वो हो जाएगा इस दिन में. ऑल राइट, ओके. सो वेलकम एवरीवन. सबको आवाज़ ठीक से आ रहा है? ऑल इज़ ओके, सो दैट वी कैन जस्ट बिगिन दिस होल सेशन क्विकली बिकॉज आई हैव सम इम्पॉर्टेंट टॉपिक्स दैट नीड योर perusal, that need your understanding. Great, Madhusudan. ठीक है. Thanks. All right. So 3 articles that I have. In fact, 2 articles and a very important question. Okay. So we'll look at these 2 in detail. Okay. Primarily. Now the first one is to do with climate financing. Now this I have covered extensively in the lecture of June the 3rd. Okay. However, if you have missed it by any chance, don't worry. So we will have a relook at climate financing. What exactly is climate financing? And we'll also look at, say, the EU's CBAM, okay, which has been in the news recently. I've also covered CBAM of the European Union in this daily news analysis in the previous versions. However, if you have missed that, or if you don't recollect it, or if you still have some doubts of understanding, well, those will be taken care of again in the next 30-35 odd minutes. Good morning, Coder. How are you? Okay. And the second one is to do with India's EV industry. Now, obviously, I did a video on this last night. But then again, that video was more of a generalist nature, just to say, introduce the topic. So if you have seen a pattern, what I do ideally is in the morning, we deep dive into a particular topic. And in the evening, the 9 p.m. broadcast, I essentially say bring to you something of a generalist nature, which you can obviously, it's not very content heavy, but at the same time is informative enough to make sure that you stay in touch with the topic. All right. So that's what I do primarily, and which is why it is desired that I go ahead and deep dive into the topic of the previous evening, especially from the UPSC prelims and mains perspective. So which is what we'll be doing in this one. We'll be taking a look not just at Tesla in India, obviously this is a part of the news, but overall the Indian EV ecosystem or the industry. Okay, we'll take a look at that. Specifically, say the practical challenges again. You know, what is causing, say, you and I to not probably shift to EVs? What are the practical on-road challenges? Okay. Where are the infrastructural shortcomings in addressing those challenges? We'll take a look at that. And finally, I have a question for you based on the current affairs of the say, past 10 odd days, where you have had these 2 terms being spoken extensively. One was spoken by the Prime Minister in his Mann Ki Baat. The other was deemed as the costliest mango or the costliest fruit ever. So we'll take a look at which is which and whether you can recognize that. All right. Okay. So before I do go forward, you know, if you are seeing this for the first time, well, go ahead and subscribe to the Telegram channel. We are a fast growing Telegram channel, which is going to be of immense benefit to you in the coming days. And I can assure you that it will be worth your time on that Telegram channel. Okay, we have close to what? Double figure members right now, which is good because it gives me more time to interact with students. I have been receiving mails from students regarding specific requests and we have been resolving those. So again, if you're looking for, say, some sort of strategy guidance or just remaining in touch with current affairs, well, this would be the challenge. This would be the channel that you would be advised to be a part of. Go ahead, scan this, join me. Right. So the first article that I have for you is obviously who pays for the clean up, which comes to you from today's Indian Express. Okay. It's an op-ed in the Indian Express, which is again critically important because it speaks about a topic that has been in the news, that has, say, direct linkage to India's interests, is also related to environment, is also related to international trade and business, economy. So it's an interlinked topic which requires thorough understanding, especially with mains coming. And you can expect questions on this for sure in the days to come. Okay, no one can obviously say second guess whether it will come in prelims or not, but you should be thorough with the information regarding this particular topic. Second one obviously is to do with EVs. First one, we'll jump into it straight up. And obviously you have these that follow every class. Some students do take the time out to write me the answers to those, which is good. I suggest more and more do that, so that I can give you, say, specific inputs that would, say, improve your answer. That's needed. Some students have obviously started that, and I appreciate those efforts. It's really good answers so far. All right, so the question that I have for you from the mains perspective for the first topic of the day is related to this. EU's CBAM is a unilateral protectionist measure that is not just against the spirit of multilateralism, but also will have no bearing on the intended outcome analyzed. Now, if you are thinking, oh my God, what is this question? Yes. Well, it's the kind of question, the mirror images of this. Hi, good morning, everyone. Good morning. Welcome, welcome. Ajay Raj, good morning. First time I'm seeing your name. Welcome. So, these are the kind of questions, guys. Don't be surprised with the, say, language used or what it is asking you to analyze, because if you have seen the mains questions in the past, they give away nothing. You need to know the facts plus the analysis. I've always mentioned that in my classes. So if you do not know any of what it means, it's like complete Greek to you, don't worry. You will understand what it is, and you will figure out the answer to this by the end of the class. Okay. Just make sure that you know what unilateral means, proposed by one party. Protectionist, making sure that it is only looking after its own interests, not being a part of the, say, global ecosystem. Okay. That is not just against the spirit of multilateralism, which is all the countries working together for common interests, for common goals. Okay. For that you have multilateral forums where people come and discuss common issues. Say the United Nations, no? A multilateral forum. All the countries coming together, voicing their opinion, figuring out solutions. So that's multilateralism. Okay. But will have no bearing on the intended outcome. So first you have to understand what is the outcome of EU's CBAM to basically critique all of these points. So let's quickly understand what is the CBAM by the European Union. All right, let's get into it. So the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism. First understand the full form. If you know the full form, you will know the answer. Half of the time, because this UPSC preparation is so many full forms that you need to remember. Acronyms, this, that. It gets tedious for the student. I completely understand that. However, if you just know the full form, you will be able to figure out the story after that. So the carbon border adjustment. Essentially, you are looking to balance out some form of carbon in some form, manner or the way or the other. Okay. So the European Union, what has it announced? Under this particular mechanism, it will levy a carbon tax, an import duty of sort. Okay. An import duty on products made from processes which are, again, keyword guys, processes, okay, which are not environmentally sustainable or non-green. They could have just written, instead of writing this, that which are not, which are made only in, say, poor countries. Okay, this is just fancy English for saying that, okay, which are made in poor countries, say the global south, developing world. Okay, so this is essentially European Union saying two reasons, okay. Think of it very logically first. European Union has two reasons why it came up with this particular import duty. Number one, its technology in terms of, say, carbon management is better. Okay, its carbon management technology is better, and at the same time its regulation is in force. It has a regulatory policy for that. Okay, so if it has these two things as a part of its process, what process you might be thinking? So you go ahead and you have to create a product. You are obviously going to use carbon in some form or manner. Okay, so the European Union has technology to, say, reduce the carbon or, say, be less carbon intensive. Other poor countries in the global south don't have the technology. So obviously they do not have the regulation also, because first the technology should come, then the regulation comes. So what has happened is, because of this, European Union's goods are now higher in price. Okay, it's self-levied, no? They have put it upon themselves. They have come up with, say, technology that can reduce carbon but is more expensive. So now their goods are expensive. So now suddenly it strikes them that, oh my God, these poor countries, they are carbon intensive also. They're emitting also, and their goods are cheaper also. You see? So suddenly they decided that, okay, we will start with this new concept, the CBAM, the Carbon Border Adjustment Mechanism, wherein if you are importing from these poor countries, the global south, the developing world, we'll ask them to pay an extra amount of money as import tax. Okay, very simple. It's a problem, not a problem, it's a concept made by them. It's a problem they came up with, and now they're making a solution which just only increases the problem. It's not doing anything to say decrease the problem of carbon emissions, in fact, if you will understand this how. So CBAM is a part of the Fit for 55 in 2030 package, okay, which is the European Union's plan to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by at least 55% by 2030 compared to 1990 levels. So they have come up with a target also that we have to reach there. So they are going to use that target to justify this particular action. That, oh look, we have a target to reach by 2030, and so it's in our national interest, it's a national priority for which we are going to levy an import tax. Justification to say that, okay, we are not doing this so that our goods remain competitive in the market. It's justification. It's how states justify. Okay. So policy aims to reduce emissions by ensuring that imported goods are subject to the same carbon costs as products produced within the EU. See, eventually it comes down to the goods, the finance, the money. Okay. So their goods should be equally competitive in the market. Right now they are not, because why? Because we have, say, cheaper resources, cheaper manpower, our goods are cheaper. At the same time, we are not having to, say, do all of these things. Technology, carbon management, regulation does not exist because we are still, say, carbon intensive in many fields, many products. So they came up with this policy. So what's the long-term objective? CBAM will ensure its climate objectives are not undermined by carbon-intensive imports and spur cleaner production in the rest of the world. Now this is again the long term, that okay, because suddenly I am a trader in India and now I'm like, okay, it used to cost me 100 rupees to export to EU, now I'm having to spend 150. So I am going to invest in technology in my home country so that I can, say, reduce the cost of production or do something that makes it less carbon intensive so that I don't have to pay that much extra. Okay. Reporting is to begin from 1st October, just 2 months later, 2-3 months later. And finally, this paisa that you have to give, the money that you have to pay, is proposed to be levied from 2026. Why is reporting beginning now? So that you have a rough estimate, a sample set of 2-3 years has been collected, so that you know the data, the projection is done that, okay, this is how much value we are going to add to our economy. Okay, which is why this initial phase is done, to collect data, sampling, so that you understand, okay, what long-term policy should you make to make this process more better. This is how states do this. You need a sample survey, no, before you are going to undertake something of this sort. So right now it's just reporting. Okay. So this is the CBAM. Now let's look at the objectives very, very quickly. First, it is looking at reducing European Union's emissions, obviously, right? Secondly, EU will not lose competitiveness in the carbon-intensive goods. Why? Because the cost of, say, the EU will be the same as the cost of the global south, because you are adding import duty also here. Okay. So which was previously lesser, now is more or less equal. So the competitiveness factor is back. Okay. And targeted countries will reduce the carbon intensity of their exports, which will help or probably incentivize people here to make their products less carbon intensive so that they don't have to pay the import tax. These are the three, good morning, these are the three particular objectives of the CBAM you are looking at. But now you have to understand which countries is the EU looking to target through this. Okay. So which countries are at essential threat here? Who are looking at the maximum damage coming out of this whole policy? So obviously the usual suspects: Russia, Ukraine, India, China, Turkey. Okay. So in case you are wondering why, well, these countries are the ones that are, say, emitting right now. Okay. Growth is happening. Okay. The goods are cheaper, market is dominating. So to limit their market potential also. Okay. So which is why you came up with this. Now the problem so arises that only 3 out of the 12 exporters have mechanism for carbon pricing. This is non-existent in most poor countries, or at least developing countries. This hasn't happened so far. Okay. So there is no particular architecture for them to say participate in this whole venture equally. You are going to be left to the arbitrary decision making of the EU in this case. Okay. So it's unfair right from the very beginning. It would make sense if, say, these particular countries, or say more than 3, would have mechanisms of carbon pricing so that you're able to negotiate to a fair extent. That is non-existent. So there is no leverage, no bargaining power for these countries. It's again unilateral. The question that I've put before you. See how it is unilateral? That the other party has no say. It's take it or leave it. That's like that again, you know. Protectionist, because again it's looking at inward, how to make sure that EU goods are competitive. Carbon is just an excuse, carbon emissions. It's about making sure that the market remains competitive. Okay. And is it against the spirit of multilateralism? What does it essentially entail? That there is equal voices. Yes. That everyone has an equal participation in a particular project, or say has an equal say in it. Does this policy allow for all the stakeholders to have an equal say? No. So it is protectionist. It is against the spirit of multilateralism, right? So let's look at the second part now, you know. No bearing on the intended outcomes. We'll also look at that now. All right, go ahead. So now the fear coming out of this. What is the fear coming out of this? That carbon leakage. What is carbon leakage? Make a note of this, guys, okay? It's extremely important. I would suggest you make a note of this slide. What is carbon leakage? If for reasons of cost, businesses were to transfer production to other countries with laxer emission constraints, this would lead to an increase in their total emissions. So if I am in the EU and I am thinking that, okay, my goods are costing say 100 rupees, but from India I can get it for say 50, I'll be tempted to shift my process here, no? Yes, this is called carbon leakage. That if you are losing, say, businesses going to countries with laxer emission standards, say India, China, Turkey, Philippines, all of these countries which are still growing, developing, they can't be expected to have the same level of regulation, same level of policy development as the West, because our priorities are inherently different. Okay, I have given this example in the past that you have, say, in India, a person burns firewood not because they enjoy burning firewood for food, but because they say do not have access to LPG. So even though it is a carbon intensive procedure, it is not a luxury, it is a necessity for that person. Compare that to say the West, where most of the carbon emissions can be categorized under the luxury level. Okay, so that is another concept that you have to understand, that in the West or in the global developing world, you are looking at emissions that come as a byproduct of luxury goods. Whereas in the global South, the emissions that are coming out of the necessity goods, the necessary goods. So the moral justification itself is much higher for the global South. Okay. And again, if you want to understand it, say from the policy perspective, forget this. If this does not convince you, understand from the policy perspective also now. Okay. So you know about the CBDR, the common but differentiated responsibility. Yes, are you aware of this CBDR class? Quickly let me know in the chat. Are you aware of what CBDR is? Common but differentiated responsibility. Let me know quickly in the chat. See, CBDR is essentially what? If you had to explain CBDR to someone in one line, how would you do it? Does it not essentially mean that, well, everyone is responsible for the mess that we are in, but everyone is not equally responsible? Is that the gist of it? Is that the gist of it? That's how you have to understand now. That yes, all the nations of the whole world are responsible for, say, the problem that is there, are also responsible for the solutions that we have to develop to tackle climate change. However, not all nations are equally responsible, which is why you see, say, the Paris Climate Agreement, the Paris Treaty, the polluter pays principle, you must have heard, no? The polluter pays principle. What does it essentially mean? What does the meaning of polluter pays principle is? That those who have historically done a lot of emissions are responsible for providing the large part of the solutions for it. Is that not it? So is EU's CBAM actually say anti to that whole line of thought? Because through these particular treaties or mechanisms, what has been implicitly understood is that, say, certain countries are more responsible, certain countries are lesser responsible, and the onus is on the bigger countries, the polluting countries, to provide solutions for it. And not just provide solutions, provide the paisa also, provide financing also. Okay. So when this is the line of thought that has come from, say, 1992 Rio Summit onwards. Again, if you know the 1992 Rio Summit, essentially it's like the parent body that you should remember. Your whole story of climate change begins from 1992 Rio. Okay. So make sure you're absolutely thorough with each and every line of whatever happened there. Good morning, Bodhapati. Hi, welcome. Are you guys clear here? That thought that exists, no, that is not being followed by the European Union's CBAM. That is the problem. So it's not just unfair, it is also antithetical to the idea of, say, climate justice that has existed since 1992. That the onus of providing solutions and the money for the solutions is not equal on every nation, no. Yes, every nation is equally responsible, but the developing world, those who have access to, say, industrial level emissions that they have done over the years, some countries have emitted huge amounts. Colonialism just doesn't happen overnight, no. It needs men, money, resources. So colonialism is also a byproduct of this whole thing that had happened. Human issues need to be solved. Yes. So it's a very interlinked topic, but you just for the timing understand that this thought process that began in 1992, well, this particular mechanism of the EU is contravening that very idea. Okay. So just quickly understand the carbon leakage bit, coming back to it. Okay. Energy markets, well, loss of EU demand makes all of this cheaper, which is why it's more attractive to the rest of the world. Costs of EU climate policy, see. Because of their own self-imposed climate policy, now companies, if they want to shift their production houses to India, so the European Union might get worried. Oh my God, we are losing business because of our own policy. How do we negate it? Levy laga do. Tax laga do. Easiest thought process. Free riding. We'll understand what free riding is, guys. Free riding, I'll explain it to you in the most easiest format. So if you go out with a party with your friends, no, there will be this one person who will never pay. Or when the time comes to pay, he would have lost his wallet, or the network in Paytm might be down, or some flimsy reason. That's a free rider who has the capability to pay, but is hesitant to pay, relying on the rest of the other friends to pool in extra for his share. That is free riding. So think of a country which comes to your mind who is currently free riding in this whole concept. Which country would come to your mind? Which country has been very flimsy in terms of, say, climate negotiations, entering some year, then suddenly exiting out of the whole pact policy, then suddenly saying, okay, we are going back in. The US of A. Yes? Have you considered that for a moment? That the US of A getting out of the Paris Climate Act and this and that they have done. It's also got financial ramifications, that they are not having to fit out money. Right? So the US of A is a very good example of a free rider country when it comes to this whole concept of climate financing. Okay. They have been relying on the others to do the hard work while they themselves are still making up their mind. Okay, it's a convenient excuse. All right. Okay. So now let's go forward and quickly understand the issues. Issues with this whole policy of import duty. What are the issues? Number one, arbitrary in nature. Like I told you, there is no scope of partnership here or collaboration. Where is the collaboration? When all decision making is in the hands of the people of the EU, is it collaborative? No. USA, correct Koda? Absolutely. Okay. Is it collaborative? No. So against the principle of multilateralism. Okay. Against the principle of multilateralism. More importantly, technical problem now. How will you infer the carbon emissions in the process of production? Okay, certain products you can infer. Okay, say steel. Okay, there's a fair process to figure out that, okay, how much carbon has been emitted. How do you infer, say, aluminium? Okay. At the same time, do you just factor in the direct reasons or the indirect reasons also? So there'll be both, no? That will be going in to the production of a process, to the process of a particular good being produced. So is it specific to just say the direct level of emission contributions or the indirect ones also? Unclear. So which means ambiguity. Okay. So this ambiguity again will be misused by the EU. You can count on that. That they will tend towards the higher import duty. Okay. At the same time, it's unclear about which countries are exempt. You should also write this down. If you're writing this down, please write this down. Which countries are exempt? Okay. Can you expect, say, a very poor country in, say, Africa or even in Asia? Okay. So they might be carbon intensive, but they just don't have the resource. Nothing they have. But if they want to, say, send a good to the European Union, why should they have to pay? Okay. Is it the polluter pays principle in action? No. Obviously, it's a different concept, but you realize the ambiguity here. It's unfair. It's not inclusive. It's unjust, in fact. You know, when you talk about climate justice, you have to think it not just from the historical perspective, but also from the contemporary perspective. What is happening now? So this again is unfair. You have no idea which countries are exempt, if at all, or will it apply equally? Not just say the 12 countries that I showed you, no? India, China, Turkey, Russia, Ukraine. Forget them. What about the other poorer countries? Okay. At the same time, look at this. It's contrary to WTO rules. Why? Because WTO rules essentially are to do with this whole GATT we learn about, no? General Agreement on Trade and Tariff, right? So the World Trade Organization, whenever you're doing all of this, say levying duties or this or that, it is essentially very clear that you will target the products. Okay. It targets production processes, this particular, not the product itself. So it's again opposite to the existing WTO rules, or at least the thought process behind most WTO rules. Okay. So straight away. And WTO rules are very legal, you know. If you read the legal documents, you will see it's extremely specific. So this will get challenged, in fact, this whole CBAM. If you read the articles, I'll tell you, India has in fact been liaising with these other nations, Turkey, China, Russia, Ukraine, all of these other 12 nations that are there. India has been in touch. In fact, just yesterday only I was reading a brief where it said that India was in touch and is looking to challenge this whole CBAM for a dispute resolution. Okay. However, the problem so arises that WTO's dispute resolution, the bench that essentially does, well, there is artificial scarcity there. Half the members are not present only. So you see, it's not just us that we are victims of artificial scarcity. WTO also does not have the legal bench ready to have this dispute resolution done quickly. Okay. So this is going to be challenged for sure. Next, you are looking at a very moral problem, okay guys, that the extra revenue that will be gained by EU, will it use to retire its own debt? Essentially, Global South is paying for it. You see, the point of this whole import levy is what? That, okay, if the money is coming in, you use it in some form or the other for, say, climate financing or carbon emissions reducing purpose or something of that sort. However, nothing stops the EU from, say, using that money to service its own debt. Or probably reroute that money to the Global South, saying, here, this is the money that I owed you in the name of climate justice. Would that be like, say, how colonialism was, guys? Where India was paying for being colonized, essentially. That was it, no? All this resource that was looted from India, Clive's loot and this loot and that loot, we have heard of so many tales of unbridled loot of the Indian resources by the British during the colonial time. So India was essentially paying for being colonized, for staying colonized. Is it similar to that? That we are paying them and then the onus is probably on them to decide whether they want to use it for, say, their own personal debt servicing or reroute the money back to me saying, here, climate justice money. Fair or unfair? You tell me. Okay. Also, does it penalize free riders, the countries that are yet to make up their mind? The countries that are still thinking whether they should pull out their wallet or say the Paytm ka network is not functioning. So, USA, obviously. And finally, Is this indeed climate justice, guys? Is this just and fair? Is this how you want to address climate change going forward? Where you are having the poor countries pay for emitting more because you have looted them in the past. Because you have not given them the capacity, the training, the resources, the method to be possibly reducing their carbon emissions. Yes. So you see the whole tangents associated with it. It can make for a beautiful answer if you include some of these points. Okay. Because the whole point of the article is, okay, I'll just take you back to the question. The whole point of the article is that you should be able to answer this question now. Unilateral, I have told you in detail. Yes. That there is no participatory approach. Protectionist, because only EU's interests are protected, no one else, not even the larger goal of climate financing. Okay, forget helping the poor countries, that is obviously not happening. You are killing them only altogether. So only EU's interests are taken care of. Okay, spirit of multilateralism, straight away, contrary to WTO rules. Okay, no equality among countries. Okay, dispute resolution, where is the channel? See, you're going to write all of these points. What does multilateralism mean? That essentially all countries come together, figure out common solutions, right? And will it have bearing on the intended outcome that you are actually going to service the climate financing, give money for climate financing? Are you looking at this being addressed? No. Are you even in fact looking at, say, reducing carbon emissions through this? No. How? Because again, carbon leakage is possible, no? So a country that it was forming, that was emitting less in EU would be tempted to move their factories elsewhere, emit more, charge less for the product. So it does none of it. It's a very ill thought of or thought out of policy. And so I think it is best understood as that it will get challenged and probably condemned to the dustbin of European Union. All right. So are you going to be able to answer this for me now, guys? For those of you who would like to attempt, go ahead, shoot me an answer. This is my email ID. Okay. Some people obviously do that on a regular basis and it's very, very good. Some of the answers are indeed very good. Those who would like to be a part of this initiative, go ahead, shoot me an answer. Normally the answers come in by, say, lunchtime, which is good because it gives me time to analyze by evening and I can come back to you before dinner. So go ahead, shoot me an answer to this and let's see how you attempt it. I have given you all the fodder material that you need to answer this question, at least in, say, 250 to 300 words. Don't overshoot more than that. Keep it brief, succinct, to the point, crisp writing, and we'll see. We'll figure out more improvements thereon. All right, moving forward, guys. And our second article is to do with, well, Tesla. But before that, very quickly. So this is again extended, thankfully, for those students who missed it, the last deadline on the 19th. Go ahead, sign up for the P2I. The orientation has got over. The classes are beginning, which means you would be best served to sign up quickly. Okay. And make sure that you use the code BALIVE, okay, this one, because you essentially get a huge off. Okay. I stand to gain nothing out of it, but you get a huge off and you are essentially going to be a part of a team that is going to look out for your interests. Okay. You must have seen, for those again who have joined, the thrust is on you. You are the focus of our attention. Making sure that you perform for that, whatever is needed shall be done. Okay. So go ahead, sign up for this in the language of your choice, Hindi, English, whichever you want to join up for, and use this particular code, guys. Okay. I shall see many of you on the 30th also. I've seen some of you and I'll meet the rest on the 30th. Okay. So the second topic now, the big meeting yesterday. All right. Grab your chais, coffees, guys. The next 20 minutes will be interesting. So the big meeting yesterday in New York, was it? Yes, New York, where the Tesla CEO met the Indian Prime Minister, right? So obviously I've done a video on this last evening, but for those of you who missed it, and for those of you who want to deep dive into it, well, this is important. So in the year 2022, you had these developments. I'm telling you this why, because you'll understand the whole story now. So in 2022, Tesla wanted to come to India, okay? Now, Tesla being Tesla thought, okay, they can ask anything of India and we will agree. Well, Indian government didn't agree, unfortunately for them. What did they want? They wanted lower import taxes, only for Tesla cars, by the way. Huh? It's like some God's gift they were providing to us, that only for Tesla cars there should be lower import duty. Indian government said, okay, are you going to set up some manufacturing plant here in the near future? Are you going to set up an R&D facility here, something? Or is it just going to be your cars coming in? Tesla said, no, we are not looking at any manufacturing or R&D facility, only cars. And why? Because your import duty is too high. So in India, you must have seen for foreign made cars, it can go up to as high as 100%. So a car that is say 1 crore will essentially end up costing you 2 crore. So it's a huge jump, which makes it financially unviable for any Indian consumer. Okay. So Tesla wanted that. But Indian government said no. Okay. Without any concrete proposal to set up manufacturing or R&D facility. Both were on the table. If you do this, something might be thought of. Probably not direct concessions, probably some other form of concessions we might think of for you. But no, Tesla said no. So straight away, Government of India said no, thank you, bye-bye. Which means last year, in the year 2022, Tesla could not enter the Indian market, the highly lucrative Indian market, by the way. You know, one bargaining power that we have as a nation of 140 crore is that we are a nation of 140 crore. Okay. That we are essentially we are one of the biggest markets with people with lavish lifestyles, rising income, disposable income after COVID-19 pandemic. Okay. So people obviously want to upgrade in life. There is a certain privileged class that exists in India that would be happy to buy this if it were to be made available. So obviously this market is huge for India, which is why Tesla has its eyes set on the Republic of India, that yes, this is one place where we have to go in. Okay. So right now what has happened is EVs are only 1.3 of all vehicles sold in 2021. See, it's a minor share or a nascent presence right now, electric vehicles in India. Very nascent. So you know something, when it is nascent, when it is just starting out, the scope for expansion is immense. Plus, you will be the first mover in the industry. What is the first mover? So you have, say, other companies right now in India that are essentially in the EV business. So you have Tata, Nexon, and all of these two-wheelers also have come up. All of that are there. But when you're comparing, say, to the international benchmark, well, those obviously leave a lot to be desired. So as an international company, it would be the first of its kind to make these cars in India and obviously make them available also. And so first mover always has the most advantage. Think of as WhatsApp. Why is it that you and I, most of us say use WhatsApp and Telegram and not these other forms of communication, these apps? They were the first in the market, and that has stayed with it because they upgraded their product from time to time, right? So it's first mover. Okay. So 0.1% of all vehicles in India are electric vehicles. You see the scope for expansion. And why is this important, guys? You know that India is targeting at net zero emissions by which year? 20? Which year? By which year is India targeting net zero emissions? Fill in the blanks for me. Which year are we thinking of? Let me know in the chat. So we are thinking of net zero emissions. In fact, not thinking, we are absolutely committed towards net zero emissions by this particular year. For that, you are going to have to change processes, which means reliance on petrol and diesel. It has to be done away with. They are carbon intensive, emit a lot of gases, GHGs. 2070. Good, Bipin. Thank God someone is available to answer this. Good. Thanks for the answer. Right? So you see that? We have a target, a policy, a goal to reach. We can't do that without, say, making changes in the process. Which is why this entry of Tesla is important, not just merely because we will have access to fancy cars that drive themselves. Fine. That is okay, fine. But in the larger scheme of things, you are looking at, say, a host of other byproducts that will be useful for us. If we shift away from petrol and diesel to electric vehicles, our fuel import bill comes down, money that can be rerouted to other areas of the economy. At the same time, you are looking at this, if it increases to even say 20-30%, okay, which means you are working towards the net zero emissions, already en route. Okay, something has been done, which means eventual goal will be reached. You see, so it's a starter. this kind of step is a kickstarter to something that will be of immense significance in the coming 20, 30, 40 years. Okay, it's a landmark day. Yesterday was a landmark day, guys. Okay. Now, why is Tesla interested in India? Well, look at it. Obviously, too many of us, 140 crore people who have the money to burn, money to spend, and more importantly, India's environmental concerns, that it's a country that is serious, that is making large-term, large-scale changes in the way it functions to reach that 2070 goal. So you see, auto industry now is being done, say, more reliance on electric vehicles. Railway, you are looking at, say, the electrification of railway lines. Green railways is the buzzword now, right? We had a particular session on SAP, I remember. Yeah, SAF in fact, sorry. Sustainable Aviation Fuel. Yes, where you are going to use, say, fuel that is blended with ATF to make sustainable flying. So you see how things are changing in each and every sector of transport. Why is that happening? So that India reaches this 2070 goal. Okay. Government's push. Now this is very important, guys. Obviously, we are a huge lucrative economy. This must have been amply clear to you. That any company wants to come into India not just because of these reasons, but also because there is huge money to be made. Extensive money. Okay. And more importantly, you have to look at this too, guys. The whole ecosystem creation that we often talk about, no? Any policy has this as the most credible fundamental basis of it. So this ecosystem creation has been done by the governmental policies so far. That okay, we may have started late, but the structure that is now in place is there. The skeleton is there. Now we just need to go about forming the body. Okay. So government's push, it drives the market sentiments, which is why companies like, say, Tesla wanting to enter, because now there is the regulatory form in place. It's not that like EU's policy where everything is arbitrary, that some babu is sitting and deciding, okay, this import duty lagega, is pe nahi lagega. No, no, no. Here everything is figured out. There's a standard operating procedure. So obviously companies like Tesla value that a lot, you know, because eventually you're dealing with human lives. People are going to be driving those cars. So you need the regulatory framework to be extensive and dispute resolution to be immediate and effective. Okay. So India has done that. How? We'll see now. Quickly. So what's India's initiative in this direction? Fame scheme. Again, UPSC guys, all of you, please make sure that you know each and every one word of this particular slide. Okay. Extremely important to know what the government of India has done. The market sentiment and all is fine because that is driven by what the government has done. Okay. So have a look at this. The FAME scheme, which gives incentives for the EV manufacturers. So you're looking at subsidies, rebates, preferential financing, you know, exemptions from road tax, registration tax, which ideally you have to do for all other petrol and diesel vehicles. So as a consumer, I am going to see, okay, this, because of this, what? The cost of the product will be lesser. You are getting subsidies, no? So as a consumer, I am going to be more interested to buy a EV vehicle. When I have to make that decision, that should I buy a diesel guzzling big car or an EV? Well, EV, you are looking at 2 rupees per litre, guys. Okay, rupees 2 per kilometer, sorry. This is the price point of EV vehicles. You see how economical it gets? Whereas compare that to, say, any petrol or diesel vehicle, the mileage is atrocious, especially if we have like an XUV and all. Okay, there's nothing. Devendra Rajput, sir, fees per EMI hai. Devendra, I'm not aware of that. आप क्यों नहीं एक बार वो हमारे हेल्पलाइन पे कॉल करते हैं, ईमेल पे एक बार लिख के पूछिए आप. You will get an immediate response. ठीक है, मुझे आंसर पता नहीं उसका, नहीं तो मैं आपको बताता for sure. Okay. All right, next one, National Electric Mobility Mission Plan, NEMMP, which sets out the target. So eventually every year you are looking at, say, 6 to 7 million sales. Why? As a consequence of this policy बना दिया ना. अब expectation क्या है कि जाके लोग खरीदेंगे. People will go ahead and buy that particular vehicles, brand of vehicles. So hybrid and electric vehicles year on year from 2020 onwards, the NEMMP. Then the mission on transformative mobility and battery storage, ecosystem creation for EVs plus battery manufacturing. Because obviously those cars are going to be running on batteries, no? Yeah? And those batteries are going to use what? Lithium. Lithium batteries. India has recently found a huge reserve of lithium in J&K. You see how it has all come together at the right time for India. Tesla came in. Why? Because a few months ago we found our biggest lithium reserves in J&K. Lithium, that is the raw material for the batteries that drives these cars. So you have the policy in place. Now you have gone and found the reserves also. So Atmanirbhar Bharat, self-reliant India. This is how you're going to become, no? Yes. It came at the right time actually for us. So production-linked incentive, obviously, to make sure that more thrust is given on the electric vehicle and battery manufacturing. Okay. Vehicle scrappage policy. Ye kya hai? What is vehicle scrappage policy, guys? So you are provided with incentives for scrapping your old vehicle. And so when you go ahead and buy a new vehicle, you get a certain amount of rebate or discount because you have scrapped your old vehicle. Okay. So you will see most of this vehicle scrappage policies beginning with Government of India vehicles. Okay. Because change begins at home, no? So you will see Government of India, if you have been to say Central Delhi area, you will find all of these ministries, no? So the ideal image that we have in our mind for government vehicles is what? The old ambassador with the lal batti. That went out of fashion quite some years ago. Then came this Maruti SX1. Okay, that was there. Now that is also phased out. Now you have had Tata Nexon come in, the EVs. Okay, so Government of India is starting from change at home. Now eventually, once the public sees that, okay, the babus are moving in the electric vehicle, then they will be tempted to take it. Okay, because why? Anything that is associated with the government gains credibility, no? So that's how it starts from there. Okay. Go Electric campaign and EV at 3030 campaign. Please इनको लिखिए इनके बारे में थोड़ा. Go Electric campaign is what? It basically is on awareness creation. Okay. On EV and batteries. It is focuses completely on awareness creation. And EV 30 at 30 campaign. This is about 30% new vehicle sales in EV. 30% EV sales by 2030. Right now, how much is it? Close to what? 0.1%. So you're looking at 30% increase in new EV vehicles by the year 2030, which is in the next 7 years. So know about this, because this is the government initiative, all the government initiatives that government has taken to make sure that ecosystem is created so that suddenly you find companies like Tesla and all interested in coming to India. Okay, fine. Now the problems we'll quickly discuss, because this I did not discuss at all. So I wanted to discuss this especially for the morning batch, because extensive, you have to understand the challenges first. Okay. So as of Feb 2023, India has about 20.65 lakh registered EVs, most of them 2 to 3 wheelers, followed by 4-wheelers, commercial, government vehicles. So you have around 20 lakh EVs, and for them you have only 5,250 charging stations. Realize the problem now? So if you look at the countrywide distribution, okay, you find that Maharashtra has 660, Uttar Pradesh 406, numbers that are not important, but you shall realize what? That there is an inherent mismatch in the number of charging stations. Again, a major reason if you and I were to suddenly decide that, okay, we are going to buy an EV, and then we realize that, okay, charging is going to be a problem. Who wants a headache in their life? No one, no. So why would anyone buy that? Okay. At the same time, we are looking at standard charging ports. Same thing. There was some earlier model. The model is not important to remember. Some version 1.0. Now the new ones are version 2.0. Then there are other 5-6 types of charging ports. Okay. Now the charging stations may not have those charging ports that your car has. So not just lesser in number, but no uniformity of charging ports. Major challenge again. Why people would not shift to EVs. Okay, note this down, guys. Fast charging versus destination charging. Fast charging is what happens in America, where you can charge quickly because again their power grading is high. So you are able to charge quickly and say move on. India has lower power grading. At the same time, this is our focus. What is destination? That you take out your car in the morning from your home, you go to your office, put it the whole day for charging or whatever, some period, drive back home. Your home is where you charge. You don't stop along the way like a petrol pump, no? None of that. All the filling, refilling happens either at the home or at your destination. This is the thrust of India, which is why you're finding that the public charging stations are lesser in number. However, this also needs to be recalibrated and relooked at. Everyone may not have the real estate or the place to put a charging point or charging station. Okay. So there needs to be at least a consolidated effort to address this particular issue. Unless the charging infrastructure of the back end, the charging infrastructure is taken care of, you will find that there will be a lot of public hesitation to shift towards EVs. Do you understand that? So next time if you go ahead and want to buy an EV, look at these. Ask the showroom guy to answer these questions first. Test his UPSC knowledge a bit. All right. No, but on a serious note, these are the more practical problems that the EV industry currently faces. Obviously, a lot has been done good, but then this needs to be taken care of, no? Right. All right. Let's go forward. Okay. Before I go forward and before I introduce you to the last question of the day, so we also have the optional batches, guys, that is starting inclusive of the test series. So again, best advice, go ahead. The price point is very convenient. It includes the test series and some of the best faculty. In fact, you can go and have a look at their credentials, like brilliant credentials, extensive knowledge of studying, of teaching, of understanding the examination. Go ahead, sign up for whichever particular batch, whatever particular optional that you have. So most of them are in fact closing by the 5th, the 5th of July is the last one that it starts. Most batches are beginning or will be beginning in the next 3-4 days. So this is probably a final call. Again, go ahead, use this code and secure yourself a huge discount. It will help you out. All right. So today's class, we are going to end with this question. Okay. Now this question is for everyone who is watching this, as well as for those who will be watching it later. Go ahead, look at this question and answer this for me in the comment box below. Do not Google, guys. Okay. Do not Google. If you have been following the current affairs over the course of the last 6-7 days, you should be able to answer this for me. Miyazaki is a technique used in urban afforestation where seeds are planted at a distance of minimum 0.5 feet. Both Miyazaki and Miyawaki owe their origin to Japan. Miyawaki is an essential part of Miyazaki technique. Go ahead. Do not Google. Which of them are incorrect? Mind you, I'm not asking you about the correct ones. I'm asking about the incorrect ones. Answer this for me in the comment box below. The answer to this being uploaded on my Telegram channel along with explanation later today. All right. Okay. So with that, my dear students, Bipen has come up with an answer. Let me see. All right. We'll see, Bipen. I suggest you have a relook. Okay. But let me know the answer. Let me see. This is how you're going to test. Continuous evaluation is very important, guys. Okay. All right. So, with that, we come to the end of this class. Once again, consider joining me on my Telegram channel. It will be a huge favor. It will be a huge help. And if you haven't liked this stream already, go ahead and like it. Okay. If you enjoyed it, if it was informative to you, if you learned something out of this whole last 55 odd minutes, go ahead, like the stream now. All right. Subscribe to StudyIQ IAS. And I shall see you tomorrow morning, 8 a.m. with the daily news analysis, editorial edge. Okay. Happy studying, everyone. Be well. Tomorrow morning, 8 a.m.